Welcome to the orientation for potential applicants to the competition for the Stepping Up Technology Implementation 84.327S projects funded by the Office of Special Education Programs and the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services at the U.S. Department of Education. I'm Terry Jackson, a project officer at OSEP and the competition manager for this funding opportunity. I would like to go over some caveats before diving into this webinar. First, the intent of this presentation is to provide guidance only, and the information contained in this webinar provides a general summary of the information contained in the notice inviting applications and the application package. Therefore, it's imperative that all prospective applicants read the entire notice, application package, and any additional relevant information. In addition, applicants are encouraged to listen to a more general webinar entitled Applying for Office of Special Education Programs Discretionary Grants for an orientation to the overall process. The webinar can be found at the OSEP ideas.org, the same location that houses the link to this recording. The purpose of, so today I'll cover the following areas: the purpose of the technology program, key terms, absolute priorities and purpose, application requirements, absolute priorities, and please note that there are two absolute priorities for this year's competition: other information, general requirements, and selection criteria. The purpose of OSEP's technology program is to improve results for children with disabilities by promoting the development, demonstration, and use of technology, support educational activities designed to be of educational value in the classroom for children with disabilities, provide support for captioning and video description that is appropriate for use in the classroom, and provide accessible educational materials to children with disabilities in a timely manner. First, there are a few terms for this priority that I'd like to highlight. The first is evidence-based. That means the proposed project component is supported by promising evidence, which is evidence of the effectiveness of a key project component in improving a relevant outcome as defined in 34 CFR 77.1, based on relevant findings from one of the sources identified under promising evidence in 34 CFR 77.1. And the evidence of effectiveness form can be found in the application package. A few other terms. When the priority is referring to settings, this will include general education and special education classrooms, charter schools, high-quality early childhood programs, private schools, including parochial schools, home education, after-school programs, juvenile justice facilities, and any other settings in which students may receive services under IDEA. And the sites are referred to as the schools. These are the development, pilot, and implementation schools where project is implementing the technology. Please be aware of the application deadlines. The notice will be published soon, but hasn't at the time of this recording. And I will also be hosting a live webinar to answer any prospective applicant questions, and information on how to access that webinar is available in the application package. At the time of this recording, we currently don't have a closing date, but please notice in the application package of the closing date and time, which is at 11:59 p.m. and 59 seconds. For FY 2020, we plan to support two absolute priorities. The first priority is providing technology-based professional development to trainers of special education teachers to support children with disabilities, and OSEP will fund 3 successful applications for this absolute priority. The second, improving social skill development for students with disabilities through the use of socially assisted robotics, OSEP will fund 2 successful applications. Please be aware that applicants may apply under both absolute priorities, but must submit separate applications. First, I want to talk about the purpose of Absolute Priority 1, providing technology-based professional development to trainers of special education teachers to support children with disabilities. For this priority, applicants must identify strategies needed to implement and integrate an existing technology-based tool or approach based on at least promising evidence into the provision of teacher in-service training, and provide ongoing technology-based professional development and coaching for in-service trainers in the use of technology to an understanding of how the technology may support teachers to improve classroom instruction and learning outcomes for children with disabilities in pre-kindergarten through grade 12. Applicants must also build partnership with LEAs, the school sites, at least one of which is in a rural location, to support teacher in-service trainers in the understanding, use, and delivery of technology-based tool or approach that will support teacher in-service training for instruction of children with disabilities in pre-K through 12 classroom settings, increase the capacity of teacher in-service trainers to effectively use and implement the technology that supports teacher classroom instruction and professional growth. OSEP is aware that you may not have all of your letters of support due to COVID-19, so we will let viewers know this. And if funded, the OSEP project officer will work with you, with the applicant that is funded. Other requirements for this priority: applicants must develop products and resources that will help teacher in-service trainers to use the technology, evaluate the effectiveness of the in-service training conducted using the technology, so now I want to talk about some of the other application and administrative requirements for this priority, where the applicant must identify a fully developed technology-based tool or approach that is based on at least promising evidence, identify how the technology-based tool or approach will improve teacher in-service training and the capacity of teachers to deliver instruction or services for PK 12 through 12 children with disabilities. Applicants must also present applicable national, state, regional, or local data demonstrating the need for the identified technology-based tool or approach in teacher in-service training to support children with disabilities, identify current policies, procedures, and practices used by teacher in-service trainers that incorporate technology-based tools or approaches to meet the training needs, identify systemic barriers, gaps, or challenges, including challenges using the identified technology in providing teacher in-service training, and describe the potential impact of the identified technology on teacher in-service trainers, teachers, families, and children with disabilities. Identify the needs of the intended recipients for ongoing coaching and supports. Identify potential strategies to provide recipients of the in-service training with the flexibility to personalize their own learning and coaching supports. Ensure that the products and resources meet the needs of the intended recipients of the grant. Provide a logic model or conceptual framework by which the proposed project will achieve its intended outcomes that depicts at a minimum the goals, activities, outputs, and intended outcomes of the proposed project. Document that the technology tool used by the project is fully developed based on at least promising evidence and addresses at a minimum the principles of universal design for learning. Applicants will also need to provide a plan for recruiting and selecting a wide range of settings where children with disabilities are served, which must include the following: 3 development sites. The development sites are the sites in which iterative development of the products and resources intended to support the implementation of the technology tool will occur. Note that this is not the development of the technology to be implemented. The projects must start implementing the technology tool with 1 development site in year 1 of the project period and 2 additional development sites in years 2. For pilot sites, The pilot sites are the sites in which tryout, formative evaluation, and refinement of the products and resources will occur. The projects must work with the 4 pilot sites during years 3 and 4 of the project period. And 10 dissemination sites. The dissemination scale of sites will be selected if the project is extended for a 5th year. Dissemination scale of sites will be used to refine the products for use by educators and evaluate the performance of the technology tool. These sites will receive less technical assistance from the project than the development and pilot sites. Please note that a site may not serve in more than one category: the development, pilot, or dissemination site. Additionally, a minimum of 3 of the 7 development and pilot sites must be in settings other than traditional public elementary and secondary schools and include at least 1 rural site. And a minimum of 4 of the 10 dissemination sites must be in settings other than the traditional public elementary and secondary schools and include at least 1 rural site. These non-traditional and rural sites must otherwise meet the requirements of each category listed above. Also, for the dissemination sites, applicants do not need to provide names of the dissemination sites, but should indicate that they plan to scale up or work with at least 10 additional sites. If funded, that information will be determined along with the OSEP project officer. Applicants should also provide information on the development and pilot sites, including student demographics and other pertinent data, such as whether the settings or schools identified for comprehensive or targeted support and improvement in accordance with Section 1111 C4C3 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, as amended in ESEA. Provide its plan for dissemination, which must address how the project will systematically distribute information, products, and services to varied intended audience, using a variety of dissemination strategies to promote awareness and use of the project's products and resources. Provide its plan for how the project will sustain project activities after funding ends. Provide assurances that the final products disseminated to help sites effectively implement technology tools will be both open educational resources and licensed through an open access licensing authority. Other requirements that applicants will need to provide are an evaluation plan that describes the measures of progress in implementation, including the criteria for determining the extent to which the project's products and resources have met the goals for reaching the project's target population, measures of intended outcomes or results of the project's activities in order to evaluate these activities, and how well the goals or objectives of the proposed project, as described in its logic model, have been met. A logic model or conceptual framework that depicts, at a minimum, the goals, activities, project evaluation, methods, performance measures, outputs, and outcomes of the proposed project. A plan linked to the proposed project's logic model or conceptual framework for a formative evaluation of the proposed project activities. The plan must describe how the formative evaluation will use clear performance objectives to ensure continuous improvement in the operation of the proposed project, including objective measures of progress in implementing the project and ensuring the quality of products and resources. Applicants must also have a plan or method for assessing the following: the development and pilot site's current teacher in-service training uses and needs, any current in-service technology investments, and the knowledge and availability of dedicated on-site in-service training personnel, the readiness of the development and pilot sites to pilot or try out the technology-based teacher in-service training, including at a minimum their current infrastructure, available resources, and ability to build capacity. Whether the technology-based tool approach has achieved its intended outcomes for teacher in-service trainers and PK through 12 teachers, ongoing training needs of in-service trainers to implement with fidelity, which includes collecting formative and summative data from the in-service training to refine and evaluate the products. If the project is extended into a 5th year, funded applicants must provide the implementation package of products and resources developed for the technology-based tool or approach to no fewer than 10 additional school sites, one of which must be rural in year 5, and provide summative data about the success of the project's products and resources in supporting implementation of the technology-based tool or approach in teacher in-service training sites. Information of the products and resources as supported by the project evaluation, including any accessibility features that will enable other sites to implement and sustain implementation of the technology-based tool or approach. A technology implementation report, including data on how in-service trainers use the technology-based tool or approach and how the technology-based tool or approach was implemented with fidelity. Data on how the technology-based tool or approach changed in-service trainers' practices, and a plan for disseminating or scaling up the technology-based tool or approach and accompanying products beyond the sites directly involved in the project. And there are 2 general requirements that applicants must adhere to. They must make a positive effort to employ and advance in employment qualified individuals with disabilities in project activities, according to Section 606 of IDEA, and must involve individuals with disabilities or parents of individuals with disabilities ages birth through 26 in planning, implementing, and evaluating the projects. So you should see Section 682A1A of IDEA. Now I want to talk a little bit about absolute priority 2, improving social skill development for students with disabilities through the use of socially assisted robotics. OSEP will fund 2 awards for this priority to help improve social skills of children with disabilities, provide ongoing professional development and coaching for educators, students, or families in the use and understanding of how the technology can improve social skills and learning outcomes for children with disabilities in PK through 12 settings. Applicants must increase the capacity of educators, students, and families to effectively understand and implement socially assisted robotics, which will be referred to as a technology-based tool approach in the remainder of this priority, to instruct and support social skills development for children with disabilities, improve the social skill interactions of students with disabilities as a result of using a technology-based tool or approach, develop an implementation package of products and resources that will help educators and school sites to understand and use a technology-based tool or approach, evaluate the impact of a technology-based tool or approach on achieving the intended outcome, and ensure that the technology-based tool or approach meets the accessibility and usability needs of the intended user. Other application administrative requirements that applicants must apply to are identify a fully developed technology-based tool or approach that is based on the least promising evidence, identify how the technology-based tool or approach will improve the social skills of children with disabilities in pre-K through 12. Applicants will need to, just to note, applicants will need to determine which grade areas they plan to focus on through present applicable national, state, regional, or local data demonstrating the need for the identified technology or approach in classrooms to support the development of social skills for children with disabilities. Document that the technology-based tool or approach used by the project is fully developed and based on the least promising evidence, and how the technology will better enable teachers to deliver instruction or services across subject areas for children with disabilities. Identify systemic barriers, gaps, or challenges, including challenges with the use of identified technology faced by schools and teachers, and describe the potential impact of the identified technology on schools, teachers, families, and children with disabilities. Other requirements: identify the needs of the intended recipients for ongoing coaching and professional development supports, ensure that the products and resources meet the needs of the intended recipients of the grant, use a logic model or conceptual framework, to develop project plans and activities describing any underlying concepts, assumptions, expectations, beliefs, or theories, as well as the presumed relationships or linkages among these variables, and any empirical support for this framework. Describe how the proposed project will align to current research, policies, and practices related to the benefits, services, or opportunities that are available using the technology. Describe how the proposed project will incorporate current research and practices to guide the development and delivery of its product and resources, including accessibility and usability. Document that the technology tool used by the project is fully developed based on the least promising evidence and addresses at a minimum the following principles of universal design: multiple means of a presentation, expression, and engagement. Other requirements: they must provide a plan for recruiting and selecting a wide range of settings where children with disabilities are served, and must include the following: the 3 development sites. The development sites are the sites in which development of the products and resources intended to support the implementation of the technology tool will occur. The projects must start implementing the technology tool with 1 development site in year 1 of the project period and 2 additional development sites in year 2. 4 pilot sites. The pilot sites are the sites in which tryout, formative evaluation, and refinement of the products and resources will occur. The projects must work with the 4 pilot sites during years 3 and 4 of the project period. 10 dissemination sites. The dissemination sites will be selected if the project is extended for a 5th year. Dissemination sites will be used to refine products or for use by educators and evaluate the performance of the technology tool. The dissemination sites will receive less technical assistance from the project in development or pilot sites. Also, dissemination sites will extend the benefits of the technology tool to additional students. To be selected as a dissemination site, eligible sites must commit to working with the project to implement the technology tool. And here again, please note that a site may not serve in more than 1 category of the development, pilot, and dissemination. Also, a minimum of 3 of the 7 development and pilot sites must be in settings other than traditional public elementary and secondary schools and include at least 1 rural site. And a minimum of 4 of the 10 dissemination sites must be in settings other than traditional public elementary and secondary schools and include at least 1 rural site. You must provide information on development and pilot sites, including student demographics and other pertinent data, whether the settings or schools identified for comprehensive or targeted support and improvement in course with ESEA. Again, be aware that you may not have all of your letters of support due to COVID-19. We will also let reviewers know this. And for those applicants that are funded, the OSEP project will work with you in identifying those dissemination sites. Applicants must also provide a plan for dissemination, which must address how the project will systematically distribute information, products, and services to very intended audiences, using a variety of dissemination strategies to promote awareness and use of the project's products and resources. Provide its plan for how the project will sustain project activities after funding ends, and provide assurances that the final products disseminated that help sites effectively implement the technology tools will be an open educational resource and licensed through an open access licensing authority. An evaluation plan that describes the measures of progress and implementation, including the criteria for determining the extent to which the products and resources have met the goals for reaching the project's target population, measures of intended outcomes or results of the project's activities in order to evaluate these activities, and how well the goals or objectives of the proposed project, as described in the logic model, have been met. An instrument or a method for assessing the site's staff, current technology uses and needs, current technology investments, firewall issues, and the knowledge and availability of dedicated on-site technology personnel. the readiness of development and pilot school sites to pilot or try out the technology tool, including at a minimum their current infrastructure, available resources, and ability to build capacity, whether the technology-based tool or approach has achieved its intended outcomes for the end users, and ongoing training needs of teachers, students, or families to implement the technology with fidelity. You must also provide a plan linked to the proposed project's logic model or conceptual framework for a formative evaluation of the proposed project's activities. The plan must describe how the formative evaluation will use clear performance objectives to ensure continuous improvement in the operation of the proposed project, including objective measures of progress in implementing the project and ensuring the quality of the products and resources. Identify and develop resources and products that create accessible learning opportunities for all children, including children with disabilities and children with high needs, and make possible the sustained implementation of this selected technology tool. If the project is extended into a 5th year, applicants will need to provide the implementation package of the products and resources developed for the technology-based tool approach to no fewer than 10 additional school sites, one which must be rural in year 5, and provide summative data about the success of the project's products and resources in supporting implementation of the technology-based tool approach in teacher and service training. Information on the products and resources as supported by the project evaluation, including any accessibility features that will enable other sites to implement and sustain the implementation of the technology implementation report, including data on how in-service trainers use the technology-based tool or approach, and how the technology-based tool or approach was implemented with fidelity. Data on how the technology changed in-service trainers' practices, a plan for disseminating or scaling up the technology and accompanying products beyond the sites directly involved in the project. And please note the Secretary may extend the project 1 year beyond its initial 48 months to work with dissemination or scale-up sites if the grantee is achieving the intended outcomes of the project, as demonstrated by the data gathered as part of the project evaluation, and making a positive contribution to the implementation of a technology-based tool or approach based on the least promising evidence with fidelity in the development and pilot sites. However, please note that each applicant must include in its application plan budget for the full 60 months of 5 years. So who's eligible for this competition? SEAs, LEAs, including public charter schools that operate as LEAs under state law, institutes of higher education, other public agencies, private nonprofit organizations, freely associated states and outlying areas, Indian tribes or tribal organizations, and for-profit organizations. The estimated range of award for each award is between $450,000 to $500,000 per year. We estimate that the average size of the awards will be around $475,000. We will not make any award exceeding $2.5 million for the 60-month project period. And again, we are planning to award three awards for Absolute Priority 1 and 2 for Absolute Priority 2. Again, even though it's the project period is up to 48 months, when you submit your application, you are submitting for a full 5 years. And just a little information about the application package. It's divided into 4 sections. Part 1 is the cover sheet. Part 2 is the budget section, including the narrative budget justification. Part 3 is considered the application narrative. This is where the applicant addresses the selection criteria that reviewers use to evaluate your application. And Part 4 are the insurances and certifications, the abstract. Make sure to follow the guidance provided in the application package for completing the abstract. This section also includes a table of contents, the list of priority requirements, the resumes, the reference list, letter of support, and the appendices. Some additional information, please note that the formatting and page limit recommendations. A page is a 8.5 by 11 on one side only with 1-inch margins. Double space all text in the application narrative, including titles, headings, footnotes, quotations, reference citations, and captions, as well as all text in charts, tables, figures, graphs, and screenshots. We ask that you use a 12-point font or larger, either Times New Roman, Courier, Courier New, or Arial is recommended. We also recommend that you limit the application narrative to no more than 50 pages. As part of the process of making funding recommendations, external reviewers will judge the quality of the application using 5 selection criteria for each section of the narrative. Each application can receive up to a total of 100 points. And those selection criteria include significance and quality of management plan, and each of these can receive up to 15 points. Quality of project evaluation and adequacy of resources and quality of project personnel each can receive up to 20 points. And quality of project services can receive up to 30 points for that section. The application package contains information on the sub-criteria within each selection criteria, and applicants are strongly encouraged to read those carefully when preparing the application narrative. The selection criteria apply to both Absolute Priority 1 and Priority 2. So that concludes this applicant presentation. If you have any questions, you can reach me at terry.jackson@ed.gov, and my number 202-245-6039. This series will be posted on the Ideas That Work site, and we'll also have a live webinar for potential applicants that will be posted in the application when this does come out, funding opportunity does come out. Thank you.